All right. So as you guys all know, I am a world first class Mythic Plus player. Yes, I am. I am now the former oldest 3K Mythic Plus player in the world. Mr. Worldwide, some would call me. But I'm going to get my title back this year. This year we are going for 3K again. And I'm telling you now, we're going to be looking at everything resource-wise to try and see what it is that we could do better in these keys for Season 2. So we're going to take a look at Tactics here. He's got a video about the hardest M+ bosses of Season 2 made easy. So let's go give this a listen.
Hey everyone, Tactics here, and with Season 2 of The War Within now out for a little over a week, I've been hearing about some tough dungeon bosses that people have been really struggling with. So in this video, I'm going to be going over the 6 bosses that I've heard the most questions about, whether that be in my stream or over in my Discord channel. I'm going to walk you through here some kills of these bosses on live realms on a +10, so that both fortified and...
Well, one of the things that I'll say right away is that if you're somebody like me who plays many alts, you're ready for Season 2. Now the problem is, can you find a group that is also ready for Season 2? Now I have a community here where we try to help each other out, and many of those are not ready. Now there are others that are, but yet I have to be inclusive and make sure that everybody can get their keys in, so I just say come one, come all. Yeah, I've been unlucky in that. Yeah, so what I'm saying is, somebody like you, Ask a Bunny, I try to help everybody. You guys know it, I know it, everybody knows it, and we're going to do the best we can. But this season, I also am pushing for 3K. Now, it's the beginning of the season, so of course we have a lot of time. And the more gear that we get, the easier it will be for me to carry you.
Tyrannical are active, and I'll discuss kind of what we do here, what our strategy is, and just some tips to hopefully make them easier for you to handle. If I don't cover a boss that you're interested in, let me know down in the comments below, and if there's enough, we can make a part 2 to this video. But otherwise, let's get right into it with the boss that I definitely have had the most questions about here, and that is Baron Braunpyke, the second boss of Priory. Now, to start off here, you do want to be grouped as much as you can for the entire duration of the fight, because there's a lot of various ground effects from both the hammers.
And if Neo's here, Neo, listen, because this is one of the things that we had a problem with when we were trying to do this dungeon. And education is everything. When you're trying to do these dungeons, you're trying to learn exactly what it is that you could do to make the experience easier, for sure.
As well as the castigator shield that just kind of clog up your room, and you want to kind of have them clustered in one area to give you more space. You see here, we pull the boss to the range, and then we just bounce to the other side of the room here, and we kind of just continue doing that for the various mechanics, whether it's shields or hammers. Either way, you want to be grouped, you want to cluster them, and then you want to move away from them. Also notice we did not use movement speeds really here. You want to try and save movement speeds for the castigator shield specifically, because the 3 players that get hit by that ability do also get a slow on them, so that's when you'll want to have movement speed available. Coming to the sacrificial pyres here, the first couple of...
Now, if you're playing a paladin, as I am this season, you can target somebody, freedom them, and you yourself, if you've taken the talent, will be also free of the impairing effect.
These aren't too bad. They're triple soaks, the first 2 of them, and so basically what you want to do here is you always want your tank to go in as well as just 2 other people, and you want to get this relatively quickly, and you want to make sure that the people going in that aren't the tank use a defensive, because depending on your spell cadence, which weirdly enough on this boss fight seems to vary from pull to pull. It was very, very weird. It wasn't consistent, at least.
One of the hard things that you have about telling people to stack up is range, because they believe that the rules don't apply to them. But quite honestly, it does, so that you're not spreading all of those spinning hammers all over the place. They hurt.
In my experience on week 1, maybe this gets fixed later on the patch, but for example, sometimes you get a castigator shield here after this first pyre, and sometimes we weren't getting that, so it was a little odd. But you want to be prepared with the defensive as the soaker, because if you do get that castigator shield, very, very dangerous. And on top of that, the dot itself is also just pretty dangerous here as well. So I, as the tank, I'm going to get in here and soak this. And then you're going to have two other players instantly go in there and soak it as well. I think the hunter and the monk did that. So if you have defenses available, that can be very, very useful for this. And then we have the shield coming out immediately after. So again, that's going to go out and we're going to move. And if you were hit by this slow, you can use a speed if needed. Otherwise, you can just walk out if it's not near you, or even if you're just quick enough, you can just walk out as well. And we're just going to regroup over here and kind of repeat that for most of the fight. So that's movement. That's one issue. Now, where it gets very, very dangerous is the third sacrificial pyre cast of the fight, because this will always be empowered by Vindictive Wrath, which means it has 5 soaks. That is a ton of group damage, not only from the AoE hits from soaking it, but also from the dots going out here. And so how you handle this is going to depend on your group composition.
And the group composition doesn't have to worry about anything with me, because for the third one, all 5, I'll pop my Divine Toll and I'll go in and I'll grab all 5. But when you don't have that, listen to the tips that are coming up. I'm sure he's going to explain a little bit of what you can do and try to mitigate this as best as possible.
I think one big thing is that having any immunity in your group is very, very, very useful for this. Some don't really count, like Netherwalk, for example, is not really a true immunity. It won't prevent the application of this dot, which is what you're scared about. But things like AMS, as long as it holds, will count and will prevent the application of this dot. Things like Bubble, or spell warding from Paladin, so any Paladin with Bubble or Prot with spell warding.
See, I need to look into that spell warding. Is that something I think that might be something you only get as Prot?
Can prevent the application of this dot. I'm not sure if Cloak works. I would assume it works if AMS and spell warding work. That Cloak would also work, but I haven't tested it myself. But any of these abilities can be used and then have one player soak all 5 stacks. So if you're going to use that, you want to use it on specifically the third sacrificial pyre. So you're going to see here the next pyre is in 25 seconds. We can fast forward. This is still going to be a triple pyre, so we're not really worried about this actually getting soaked. So we're just going to do the thing we just did, where I'm going to eat one and a couple other people are going to eat one as well. Hunter, and then looks like Turtle still gets the dot, by the way, so Turtle does not work, but Cloak may work. And then the next one coming up in 25 seconds, this is the one that is always empowered, at least in my experience. So he's got the Vindictive Wrath. There it goes. And I'm going to run over here, and I'm going to pop Spell Ward, and then repeatedly run in and out, in and out, in and out. And you want to be very careful here, because again, the biggest thing is the overlap of the soaks and any other ability. This one, we have the hammers and the interrupt going out, so that's not too big a deal. We could just move, but if it's ever the shield, everyone needs to be scared when you're doing a 5 soak here, because they get dipped pretty low by you soaking all 5 stacks relatively quickly.
And that's probably when somebody like the hunter should have popped Turtle there. You know, so don't pop Turtle thinking you're not going to get the dot. It's not going to save you.
Healer just needs to be aware of that. Other thing with that interrupt, make sure everyone is looking and kicking it. It's totally fine if you commit like 3 kicks to it, as long as someone gets it, because it's basically a wipe if you don't get that kick. And otherwise, it just keeps going from here. Now, if you don't have an immunity available to you, and like I said, AMS only works as long as it holds, so it'll work for like the first couple, maybe the first 3, but the 4th and 5th, it won't necessarily work for. So in that case, you may need to soak the 4th as the DK, and then have the 5th a second person soak the 5th stack. If you don't have any immunities available in your comp, you're going to probably want to stack 2 on your tank initially. Have someone take one, have someone take another, and then your tank can go and get the last one once their stacks have fallen, because you have 30 seconds to actually detonate all those stacks. So you can, if you do the first series quickly, tank soaks 2, pops a defensive, you can move away, and then once the tank stacks have fallen off, they can move back and get that soak later on, after you've moved from these hammers, for example. It would still be up here with these hammers spinning, so the tank would just need to be careful. But that, in that sense, 3 stacks are getting eaten up by your tank, and then just 2 people again are soaking the other 2 remaining stacks. Very similar to every other set of this boss fight. So it's been Braunpyke. Hopefully that helps you get this boss out. It's definitely one of the tougher bosses this season. Moving on, we've got Mordretha, which is another very, very difficult fight. So, first off, Reaping Scythe is maybe one of the scarier tank busters this season. So, you really want to make sure that you have a good defensive rotation here on every single one. Spread them out so that you have something on every single one. You don't usually need to press defensive on anything else in this fight. So, you can pretty much reserve them specifically for Reaping Scythe. This cone, Dark Devastation, it has the same bug as every single rotating frontal cone ability I've ever seen in WoW, where sometimes it'll show as it's not moving, but it is moving. So be careful, give it a lot of space, respect it, especially because it also knocks back, and you can get into this weird situation where you get bounced by the frontal into the wall, which then bounces you back to the frontal, and then bounce. It's bad. So make sure you give it some space. The main difficulty, I think, in a lot of this fight is this Grasping Rift here and the RNG involved with it.
So yes, always make sure you're grouping up together on this, and make sure you're pulling against the pool. Pull against the pool. Something like that.
Because they're not static spawns, right? This can spawn literally anywhere, like around the pentagonish in the room. So like it could spawn directly on top of you. And obviously that's really, really rough when it overlaps with this Manifest Death. So if that ever happens, that's kind of when you want to have CDs ready, like group defensives or whatever, to commit it if you have to move heavily during a rift because it spawned bad. Now, in general, the main damage of the fight does come from the spawning of the ads here, not the Grasping Rift. It's the Manifest Death that you're worried about. So that's when you want to have healing prepped for, as those casts. In terms of how we handle the ad spawns, we tend to want to interrupt, everyone interrupts their own ad, basically. You have Noxon as well if you're far out and you don't want to commit a kick initially. That works fine. Ring of Peace, similar to a knock. So a kick or a knock to get your ad in. And then from here, we just have like AoE CCs available, Paladin as single target stuns available. Just keep them all locked down under the boss, and they have low health, so you can kind of just cleave them down once they're all here and kind of in that meat grinder. Other than that, the 50% transition will always interrupt any cast going on here. So he's starting. We do barely not interrupt that rift, I believe. Yeah, so he starts his cast here at 50%. If you are struggling with this boss, you should be pooling damage as you get closer to 50%, and you should lust this. We lusted on pull here because we had all CDs. We're not really worried about this boss. We're in a coordinated group, right? So we're not something we're super worried about. But if you are struggling with this boss on whatever key level you're doing, save Bloodlust and start holding damage keys for when you hit 50% and Bloodlust this.
That's what we did yesterday. That's what we did yesterday, and we timed it
as short as possible, because this is where you can start to get the weird overlaps with like the rift and charge lines, or the rift and a bunch of circles going out. So the shorter this phase is,
we actually didn't, because our mage didn't have lust available until 23 seconds after, so it was closer to 30%.
the better. Also, healers constant ticking damage in this phase, so you're really scared of the Manifest Death cast, because you're taking that damage on top of already taking ticking damage at the same time, on top of whatever else is going on at the same time in this phase. So that's where you really want to make sure you have some defensive or some healing throughput available to players.
And you also want to try and make sure that you're always rotating your camera to try and make sure you're looking for the charge. So make sure you're not in the line of the charge, so that this way you're going to stay alive. I mean, that's one of the things that, the boss at this time isn't going to be doing anything detrimental. So you want to turn your camera to be able to look at the rest of the arena, so that this way you can stay alive.
When that cast actually goes off, you can see it in a couple seconds here. I'll fast forward. Here's the Manifest Death. We have a rift going off. We have the pulsing damage. So this is super scary here. But we have maybe Mage Barrier went out there early. Monk has his throughput planned. We get the grouping here. Again, Nox, Divine Toll, Leg Sweep. And again, mostly just chilling around the... This is what
now
I'm
you
talking
see,
about.
there's the frontal.
Almost died here. Popped Ardent. Did not die. Very powerful. But mostly just staying around the edge of the room here to avoid the charges and avoid these circles, just to make it a little bit easier.
And that's always happening because you're trying to be so aware of everything that's in your surroundings that you can miss the little things, and it can cost the key.
Here, give you some more time to react to those things. And again, the shorter the phase is, sub 50%, the less awful it is. But whenever you have a rift spawn, you need to immediately be aware, where is that rift? We got lucky on the second phase rift spawns, because if you need a safe movement, if you ever get a rift that spawns directly on top of you, because that is the most scary thing that could possibly happen. Oh, that's the... Here we go. Swampface. Okay, heard a lot of stuff about Swampface. I talked about this a little bit in my recent Keystone Legend guide to Operation Floodgate, but this is basically one of those fights where it has a lot of constant damage going out. Razor Choke Find is going to bind the 4 non-tank players together. There's constant ticking damage, which is obviously going to ramp up with the key level. And then the big kind of damage instance comes from Awaken the Swamp, and that's kind of where you want to plan your defensive usages, plan your personals, plan your healing CDs, and you want to stagger them, not stack them, such that you have something covering every single one of the Awaken the Swamp casts. In terms of movement, because this is what's going to own a lot of pug groups, all you need is just some general rule. So for us, whenever the Mudslide Frontal goes out, our rule is always move left, always move left. Now, when it comes to the Awaken the Swamp cast here, you can't always necessarily follow the always left rule. Sometimes it's not great. Like in this situation, for example, it's kind of bad actually, because moving left here puts them in between 3 circles. So you can do it. You can still dodge because the circles generate one at a time, and that's up to you. And if you want to obey the always left rule in things like pugs, I think that's totally fine. It does make this a little bit spookier though. As you can see, they're gonna have to move 3 times here and look all ways and think, yeah, we do lose someone to it as well. It's totally survivable in that situation, but there's also plenty of situations where, you know, the circle will spawn immediately to your left, and then it doesn't make sense to move left all the way through that circle, right? So you need to use your head a little bit when it comes to the actual circle spawns. But I think,
Yeah, since they're so RNG where they're going to go, it's going to be very tough, very tough. And you're still tethered to your partner. So your partner's got to be watching your character as well as theirs, and then as well as these waves.
having a rule to always move left on the frontal is totally fine, because you can be on the right side of the frontal and move all the way left across it with more than enough time before it goes off. And that's totally fine to do, and just obeying the same rule, I think, is a good idea for this boss. As a tank, just like last boss, good defensive rotation on Sludge Claws, another very scary tank buster. If you have a burst of self-healing, you can also save this for right after it goes off to clear that healing debuff off you. Can be really, really useful. And also be aware, if someone does die, I am now bound to someone until the next debuff goes off. So just keep that in mind. You can be picked, so you need to be with the group if someone dies. But otherwise, especially as a paladin, right, I kind of don't want to be constantly moving and replacing my consecrate all the time if I can help it. So I will try and not be with the group if I'm not bound to someone.
What a mess.
For a lot of tank specs, it's actually totally fine to keep moving with the group. So if that's not a problem, you can just move with your group as well. But otherwise, this fight is not really complicated. It's just very punishing in terms of, coordinating your positioning, and a decent amount of healing throughput required as well throughout the encounter. So that's kind of why I think it's been farming pugs. But I think once people start to get this fight, they obey the always left rule or always right, whatever you want to do, just always going in the same direction as your partner, I think that's going to make this a lot easier.
I think I'm going to have to do a video so you guys can see, because we did this at an 8 and then a 7. We didn't time either one of them. And the nuance could be is because it's so new that we don't know the proper routing. We don't know some of the best pulls. Everybody's still trying to theory their way all the way through it and see what works best. I believe we did one just the other day where we died multiple times on the very first pull. It was a very large pull and countless deaths in the beginning. I was like, this is a done key, and we still timed it. So it's really up to, because it could just have a generous timer, or I don't know, or we just were able to force it, never give up. Yeah, exactly.
Moving on, Kujo, not a boss that's super complicated, but I did want to talk about it a bit because I've got a lot of questions about the box tech for this boss.
Now, this one here, I don't understand why people are having a problem with this, although we ran into a problem later in the dungeon after, I want to say after the third boss, on the mobs. I think a lot of these dungeons are, the killer is the mobs. we're just dying because the mobs. So we did the whole ramp, right? And we're talking workshop. So we did the whole ramp going on our way up to the last boss. And I had multiple tanks pull the mob at the top platform by themselves. And then the other mob that wasn't even near them ended up coming in and wiping us out. So maybe it's a bug. I don't know. Maybe let me know if you guys have run into that. You timed it by 1 second. That's crazy.
So let's start out. Let's start out with that. So basically, whenever the box comes out, you have the airdrop. What you want to do is you want to line up Kujo parallel to a side about halfway through it. So you're gonna see here, I'm gonna have him parallel to this side. He's kind of not even halfway through it, a little less than half.
This is new tech right here. Listen to this part.
Halfway, and this is kind of where you want to be, like somewhere where you have his hitbox between the quarter point and the halfway point is around where you want to aim
practice.
it. And you can see here, I'm going into the side of the box almost, and I'm still in melee range to hit the boss. You can see all the melee are kind of stacked up on me as well. Range have an easier time with this because it's much more forgiving, but basically what you're doing here is you want to make sure you have this little rogue stealth buff up here. That shows you're safe. Plater also says safe right here on my screen above the health bar. And so it's a little trick you can do to maintain melee uptime on this boss while still not getting absolutely owned by the venting flames. And basically you just want to make the boss parallel and pull him between the quarter and halfway through the box, and that gets you a spot where you can safely lose it.
Hey, Crow, thank you so much for the raid, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. I hope you had a great stream, my man. I appreciate it. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome, Raiders. We're covering some tech here about some of the bosses for Season 2, and we're listening to tactics here. Great day for Kian. Yeah, because of the emissary this week. We have the emissary this week, so don't worry about balls or trying to dispel shit. That sounds fucking amazing.
And I can fast forward to the next one too, show you what I do here. Again, pull them in parallel to the box. You can do it on either side, by the way. It does not need to be the long side. It can also work on the short side. Just same deal though, kind of a quarter to halfway through the box.
I think this is something because I also tank. I should give this a try. As well as my team is okay with it, to try and make sure I can position this boss just like this on the box. I think that would be something they could benefit from.
And you're good. Now let's talk about the leaps here. I've heard a lot of conflicting reports. So previously, in previous seasons, you were able to cancel these leaps with a combat drop like Meld or Vanish or Feign. I've heard that a lot of people are saying that you can no longer do that. This leap,
I don't know. Can you do it, Crow, on your hunter? On Kujo, can you feign death to eliminate him jumping to you? Have you tried that?
if you like the first person targeted use one of those abilities, it would cancel the whole thing. Apparently it doesn't work anymore. I cannot 100% confirm that it does or does not work. Some people have said that only Hunter Feign works and all the other ones don't. I don't know, but the strategy was to have someone bait the leap out for this player. If they ran out really early, everyone else stacked in, it would target them first and they could use one of those things. That was the strategy.
Well, if you remember this, Crow, and you get picked, try it and see what happens.
I don't know if it works or not anymore, so keep that in mind. Potentially works, potentially doesn't. But this is the kind of situation where, you know, the leap happens and then you see immediately Blazing Chomp happen. So this is where you would potentially want to press a defensive if you are one of the people targeted by that leap, because you're taking that leap damage and then you're also going to take Blazing Chomp damage very, very soon. So press personals if you're targeted by the leap. Healers try and top those players really quickly, and tanks watch this Blazing Chomp timer, pre-defensive it, because you see how fast it ticks you.
The feign does work. Heisen, how you doing, buddy? Welcome. That's good to know. That is good to know.
Ticks pretty quick, and that was through my full spell block and consecrate. So you need to be careful, especially if the healer doesn't get an instant dispel in a coordinated group. Obviously, you know that the spell is going to come really quickly. In a pug, you maybe don't know, so don't be afraid to commit pretty significant defensives to that to prevent it from absolutely owning you. Now, you can also do things to prevent it from applying. I've AMS does work. You can pre-AMS it, and the debuff doesn't go out on you. Pre-bubble, I assume pre-spell ward, but I actually haven't tested that myself. So things like that, again, immunities on the tank can be quite useful to kind of eliminate a chomp entirely, which is pretty nice. And again, you would always want to eliminate.
Now he's doing 10s, okay, but because on things below 10, your healer is, or the healers I've been running with are barely phased by it. You're barely phased by it. So I really, like he says, it's also about the group comp that you have. But in our community, we don't really worry about that so much. You know, it's more about your item level. Can you take the hit? Is really where it is. And do you have the stamina for it? You know, if you're still running around in season 2 gear at the lower end, or season 1 gear at the lower end, are you going to be able to do these keys? For the most part, you can. But that's bearing in mind that you have a bit of skill playing that class. Now, a lot of people that I'm playing with in the community, I have run with, but the new people, I don't know so well. I get to know them by running with them and getting to learn what their capabilities are. For these, for the push to 3K, for instance, this is our goal, and should be anyone that wants to get there. If this is your goal, stay here. We watch and discuss some of these tricks and tips, because it's going to be something that saves you so many minutes. I'll go over a blue post right after this video that is giving us information on some of the changes that were just handed down from Blizzard for the dungeon. So stay tuned after this. If you get bored, I'm sorry. I'll post it down in the notes, but we're going to be covering that as well.
The one that happens after the leap, just to make that a little bit nicer. Then we get to a couple bosses from Dark Flame Clef. So first we got Blazon. Boss, it's kind of a bit of a dance almost in terms of how you handle the boss. So
now this one, I also thought that was easy, but we're going to listen to see what, like this here, is there people that don't, no, and I can't assume. I can only assume that if you're watching my videos, then you're watching others and other guides. So this is nothing, this should be nothing new, but here it is.
To start, it's all about the candles, right? So Dousing Breath is the big hit of this fight. It happens about every like 55 seconds, I think. Yeah, according to the timer, like 55 seconds. You want a button kind of for every single Dousing Breath. This first one is the least dangerous one because you have no damage going into the fight. Obviously, you should be full health, but every other one past this is a bit scarier, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this puts all the candles out and kind of resets the phase. So what's going to go on here? Immediately, Wick Lighter Barrage goes out. This will always prioritize ranged players. So if you're ranged, you can start out towards a candle and just kind of bait there. If your group doesn't have 3 ranged, then all the ranged will always get picked, and then whatever is left over of melee will get picked. Tanks will only get picked if people die again, so you don't necessarily really need to worry about that unless a lot of people are dead, but then you have other problems. So range can pre-bait out here, and that is going to make this running a lot easier because you want to hit as many candles as possible here. So you see we have range out here. One goes down, one goes to the side, and then we have another one running up the far side there. Just try and light as many candles as possible. This will then go out and shoot any candles you didn't light and give you a dot. So the more candles you light here, the less damage you take. It's now
and that's one of the things I like about his videos. He's also letting you know why, the purpose of operation, and it's all about everything Blizzard said they were going to do. They were going to stop a lot of the casting, but there was going to be a lot more unavoidable damage in these dungeons, which is going to be taxing if you're not using your defensives, if you're not popping personals, and if you're not trying to avoid the other mechanics that are involved, which is going to make your healer really taxed.
Followed by Extinguishing Gust. And this is kind of the opposite. So you need to clear at least one candle here for Safe Room for the Incite Flames. However, you're going to get another one of the fire cones going out that we just saw, and that's going to give you a dot for the number of candles that you cleared. So you don't want to hit all 4 of these. And again, this always targets everyone who isn't the tank. You do not want to hit all 4 candles here. So you're going to see here, we're going to purposely miss 2 and purposely hit 2, and then just spread out and move away from the boss to make sure you don't get ticked, because these tornadoes tick very hard. So melee you saw there, I'll just rewind a second. You can see our monk basically jumps out back with it, avoids the cone, and then sidesteps. So that's what you want to do as melee. You do not want to get ticked by that cone. Tanks as well, step away from the cone, maybe back in the boss's hitbox a little bit just to make sure you avoid it. But again, we only hit 2 here, and you can hit 1 if you're really trying to min-max. It's kind of safe, especially in a pug group. Just assign 2 people to do it in case one of them misses. And then we just stack in one of the safe areas. And then this is going to now, again.
Now, one of the things that I ask you guys, do you run with a lot of communications? For instance, are you in Discord? Do you run with a group that you're with quite often? If you're not, come to our channel, Achilles _ 9070, or Croton Network, by the way. These in the day, I'm in the evening. We do a lot of these here and always try to help each other out so that we can try and learn these mechanics to the best of our ability so that everybody can get everything that they need.
Light the remaining candles once more, and because
yes, but Watashi, you would be one of those advanced players. You know what I mean? If you're somebody that's new and you're a little skeptical about getting in, then you need a community that has open arms to try and really get you to go, to fight the anxiety of getting in.
we cleared 2, that's 2 candles that get lit here. So avoid these, and now this is going to get 2 stacks. So again, if you cleared 4 here, you get 4 stacks. That's very dangerous because this goes immediately to the Dowsing Breath. And this is, again, why you want defensive coverage. This is the most value defensive here. Just defensive the stacks of these dots, assuming your defensive will last long enough for the Dowsing Breath here. But I think most defensives will last that entire duration, because you can see there, it lasts past the actual Dowsing Breath hit. So that is where you want a defensive those dots. Healers be ready to keep players up through that ticking damage. And then, again, have that defensive. If you planted it for the dot, it should also last through that big hit. And then from here, it just repeats. So it's all about dancing. So again, range, at this point, need to get out.
And the other thing, sorry to keep stopping so much, but you're going to, if you saw one of my other videos, Blizzard is coming out with a UI package that is going to be able to give you your countdown on such things as your CDs. So you'll be able to know how long, if you're tanking, your defensives are going to be up, when to pop your next one. Because a lot of times, new tanks, such as myself, you'll panic and you'll just start hitting all kinds of defensive. Then when you need them, you've got nothing. You need an external from somebody to try and help you survive.
Spread out for the candles. You're going to get targeted by the Wicklighter Barrage.
Don't be that guy.
Melee, if you're going to be picked because you don't have enough range, be ready to move out as well. And it just repeats. So again, you want to hit as many candles with the barrage as possible. You only want to hit 1 or 2 candles with the Extinguishing Gust, and you just kind of repeat that.
If you don't remember, that's the circles. Hit as many candles you can with those, with the fire circles. With the gust of wind, only hit 2.
Repeat that. So that's Blazon. Let's now move on to the final boss, the Darkness. And this is kind of all about, candle management, your heat management of the candle. So a few things to start. One, you're going to have one player who's kind of designated to mostly filling in the wax, and you're going to have one player who's designated to mostly move the candle around. I found that to be the most consistent. So if you have a very mobile range DPS...
Now, I'm not going to lie here. I ain't going to lie. I don't fucking touch a candle at all. I'm trying to learn, but when it comes to going, I'm like, hell no, I need to DPS this guy down. So I'm DPSing, and they're like, well, then you get the purple. So the purple circle, whenever you get the purple circle, then go get a candle and come back in. I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yes, like a BM hunter, they're a great choice to deal with the wax. Your healer is also a pretty decent choice to deal with the wax. So that comes.
What do you mean? I feel the tank should get the candle and put it down. Not all the time, do they? Like I'm not even gonna lie, right now, because I am assuming by what you said, Watashi, putting it down means the hand, the little extra action button you get. He's got to stay in it 100%, but
with some stipulations we'll talk about in a second. In terms of the candle movement, melee DPS or your tank, I'm going to be the one doing it in this just because, they're always kind of in range. And so generally, the person who's assigned to the candle, they're always going to move it for the umbral slash. The person who's assigned to dealing with wax, they're going to be, making sure they get wax for the candle here. The other thing, people who get targeted by Shadow Blast, it's very, very good to just run out to a wax candle when you get.
Hey, Lorcan, you pick up the candle all the time when you're tanking? But can I ask and explain this to everybody? Why? Why do you pick it up? Because I don't understand what would be the purpose if you're handling the boss.
Shadow Blast, grab it and bring it back. You're gonna have to be away from the group anyways. If your candle is kind of totally fine and you have someone else already out there doing that, you can instead, like if you're a melee DPS, kind of milk on the boss and then move out at the last second. Just make sure you don't cleave your candle. Otherwise, you're right, we're moving with the beam. Again, similar rule here as Swamp Man. You always want to try and be consistent with your movement, move in the same direction. So we always kind of move clockwise. The other thing is it is better to kind of position yourself, especially after the first frontal here, towards the middle of the room a bit more as opposed to on the edge.
So you're running when he's going to do Shadow Blast? Or is that, which attack is that? Is that Shadow Blast or Umbral Slash? I would imagine it's the Shadow Blast, right?
Because all 4 of the potential wax spawns are kind of more centralized in the room here. So moving this direction makes it a little bit less movement for.
Yeah, but I'm trying to learn the names of these things because a lot of times, and for everybody else, like I said, this is a discussion. When you're in places, you are under the assumption that if you're looking at everything that you're looking at your plater, you look at green, orange, and yellow. It goes green, yellow, orange. So these are the things that you see as cast bars that are running. And if you're listening to somebody like Quasi, the legend for it is the orange would be the most detrimental to be not kicked. But out of habit, you're kicking green, you might be kicking yellow, and not actually waiting for the orange. Shadow Blast is the purple circle, the DPS. Okay. All right, we'll see if we can find that one.
Or whoever is assigned to get those waxes back to your candles.
Because if I'm going to be tanking, you have to turn that away from the candle, don't you? Like you don't want you don't want the frontal to come out on the candle.
So that's useful. Call Darkspawn, just kick that ASAP. If you let it channel, it's going to spawn more of these guys. These guys have very, very little health. They're not really too much of a problem, so just make sure they don't cast. And then we have the Eternal Darkness cast. So this is kind of the situation where you potentially don't want your healer to be the one.
Oh, that's why you're grabbing the candle. But you're grabbing it off of the cart? I'm so confused. I mean, I'm trying to learn. I am trying to learn.
With the wax, especially if they have to plant to heal your group during this and they can't deposit the wax, because basically you want to deposit a wax halfway through this cast because it drains so much of your candle's energy. And so on this first one, for example, we do have our healer doing it because he's going to commit his spirit link down for this, and then he's going to fill it partway through. But later on, for example, we don't have the healer doing it. He's going to plant and heal, and you can have either, again, a ranged DPS or any mobile DPS literally just jump out, grab a wax, and jump back in to fill the candle up during the cast, or a ranged can just get it, hold it for 5 or 6 seconds before this Eternal Darkness cast, and then deposit it halfway through. Either works, as long as you have someone depositing partway through the Eternal Darkness that ideally, again, isn't your healer so they can heal. That is going to make it perfectly safe. And then the healer, because there's no damage basically happening outside of Eternal Darkness, they can just refill the candle between casts of this ability. Spirit Link goes out, he heals it, like I said, and then from here on, someone else is going to be doing it. In terms of Shadow Blast as well, by the way, you should probably be pressing a defensive on this. Again, there's not a ton of damage going out. It happens once every 30 seconds, and it picks a random player, so should have more than enough defensives for pressing on this ability.
Oh, yeah. There's no cart here. That's right. Yeah. Wow.
and it does deal quite a bit of damage here. That's probably diffuse or something crazy like that. But you know, there's some later in the fight which.
All right, what is this called? What is this called? This is Umbral Slash.
Nearly.
So it looked like the tank did grab it. Oh my god, I gotta do that. I did not know that.
One-shot people, so just keep that in mind. Again, rotating around here every time. One thing about tanks getting the orb mid Eternal Darkness, beware the boss seems to be moving now during this channel, so you can't necessarily do it. I think I do it in this next one. Fast forward a little bit here. Yeah, here's the Eternal Darkness cast. Like I said, the healer is planting. He does actually have a light, so he pops healing tied to them there, actually, so he's fine. But you can see the boss did start moving slightly when I leaped out and charged back in. So just be aware, if you don't have the kind of mobility as like a warrior or a demon hunter or maybe a brewmaster monk with transcend, it can be tricky for the tank to do this. So it's better to just have a mobile DPS do it, or if your healer has mobility during their healing, they can do it. Resto Shaman is obviously very good at that, but something like a Disc Priest would be worse at it. So it's kind of dependent on what your healer actually is. Resto, another one, would be very good at doing the wax even during the damage, right? Because they can pre-ramp for it, all their hots are out, and then they can go drop the wax off. So comp dependent there, but basically have someone assigned to be doing the bulk of the wax and have someone assigned to be moving the candle. Stay central, and that is mostly fine for this boss. But there we have it, guys. Hopefully this helps you and your group on some of these harder Mythic bosses this season. If it did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like it, including Keystone Legend route walkthroughs, which we're going to be releasing over the next couple weeks, as well as Mythic raid boss guides as well. So got a ton of content. Make sure you're subscribed. Of course, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for my amazing supporters over on Patreon. So thanks so much for supporting me, and thank you everyone here.
He's got a Patreon.
I'll see you all in the next video.
All right, I will post this link down in the comments, but we're not done. We are not done, because hot off the press, we get some new information. We get some new informations. So there's been dungeon nerfs and buffs. All right, currently we have Cinder Brew Meteorate. Chef Chewie's high-stake missile travel time increased to 2.5 seconds was 1.5. Chef Chewie's compliments to the chef aura no longer makes nearby creatures immune to crowd control. Hired muscles volatile keg damage over time duration reduced to 6 seconds was 8. Bank Buzzbee's honey marinade explosion damage reduced by 48%. That looks huge. IP's burning fermentation damage over time reduced by 20%. Let me know down in the comments, did you feel any of these? Was this a thing? Because I still don't think that they're addressing some of the main problems, the drops. Well, I take that back. I think they did release something that they reduced the amount of health that they would come back with, because they would rejuvenate and be back and then enrage because they came back with like 80% health or some shit like that, I heard. All right, Dark Claim Cleft. Timer reduced to 31 minutes was 33. That's a little bit of a nerf on the timer. They thought we were getting away with too many minutes left on the clock to 3 chests that dungeon. Corridor Creeper's creeping shadow can now be dispelled. You guys will help me. I am not a healer. I have no clue. Operation Floodgate. Swampface mudslide damage reduced by 25%. I believe that's the frontal. So if you're standing in that, it shouldn't immediately kill you. It'll kiss you, but it won't kill you. Dark Fuse Jump Starter's battery bolt missile travel time increased to 3 seconds was 2 seconds. What the fuck is that? You see what I mean? I play these dungeons, but I don't know the names of the shit that's in there. I'm like, unlike probably many of you, I just press buttons and get out of the way. Bumblebee's backwash initial impact damage reduced by 20%. Fixed an issue in Operation Mechagon Workshop that could cause self-trimming hedge saws to not display during the Machinist Garden encounter. That could be a thing. That could be a thing. Timer. Okay, wait. And then the Priory of the Sacred Flame. Timer increased to 32 minutes instead of 30. 32 minutes and 30 seconds was 31 minutes. So this is the yin yang where they thought we didn't have enough time for Priory. So now you don't have to make maybe so many risky pulls. The Baron of Braunpyke will now use abilities in a consistent order. What the fuck does that mean too?
Holy Jesus.
Gotta do your homework.
What is that?
Hey,
What
Ganja,
the
how
fuck
you
is
doing?
that?
That's right. So that is your news for today. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, and if you want to come out and hang with us in the stream, it's Achilles _1970, usually every evening. So come on. They even wrote a song about me. I'm that fucking good.
Breaking keys, don't tell me about no wrist fools. No, that wasn't me. No, that wasn't me. I am the man. I am the man.